I have the next question, which I just sent to all the panelists via chat. I will go ahead and say the question aloud. And just so you know, the order of respondents, we're going to start with Karen, and then the second will be Joe, then Tom, then Vicky, and then we'll finish up with Myra. So in that order, here's your question. The sports park located on E Street next to the Community and Senior Center is a wonderful amenity enjoyed by Woodland residents and others. Yet, it appears that a significant percentage of the funding for the sports park comes from the residents of Spring Lake, who live on the other side of Highway 113 with no easy access to the property. What do you know about the funding of the sports park, and is it appropriate to pay for a facility that is available to everyone with an oversized contribution from one small group of the neighborhoods? And so once again, that question starts off with Karen.
Thank you so much. So I stumbled on this issue when I was working with the Measure O campaign 2 years ago, which was designed to, it was a bond to increase school facility money. When I was talking to members of the Spring Lake community, they brought this issue to my attention. And at first I was so surprised. I actually went to, contacted our city manager, who was, has departed. But I contacted him and because I didn't believe it. And I thought maybe the residents were confused, but that isn't the case. I asked how we could rectify this. He said it was very complicated and very complex, but it's one of the reasons why Woodland has struggled to pass a school bond. Not the only reason, but it's one of them, is that the Spring Lake residents feel that they're being heavily taxed and they're paying, essentially they're paying for most of the sports park, but everybody uses it. I think it's a really valid issue. What's really important in government is that it be fair. If it's not fair, there's almost no point in having it. This is an issue we really need to look at. Fairness and equity is absolutely essential in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, Joe, same question about the sports park to you.
Yes, I do think it's unfortunate that Spring Lake has to pay the extra tax on what the heavy taxes that they're already paying. But we have to think about history, and Woodland's been around here for 150 years or so, or a little bit more. People here in the old part of town think, you know, that they've paid their fair share and they've paid for all the measures prior. And so, you know, talking about, you know, measures failing, I think that has to do with the past councils, you know, taking that whatever money was approved and putting it back in the general fund, and where people kind of get lost in where the money's going. And so I was on Measure S&T, so, you know, making sure Measure Y passes is a you know, a huge hurdle, yet we still are lacking that funding for our schools. And so, you know, I'd really like to, you know, see, you know, Spring Lake get access to the community park, because I think that would really, you know, quail a lot of the animosity. So getting you know, that bridge done on time and, you know, get it done soon, I think is very key. But then also, you know, it's unfortunate that it got passed, but you know, it was prior to, you know, the decisions being made when the sports park was built. You know, it's a $6 million project, and it costs a lot of money to run. And so that money, I think, is going to, you know, it's being spent well. It's not, you know, if you go there, right, it's a beautiful place. It provides for the whole community. And, you know, it's just unfortunate we don't have access to there. So Spring Lake needs to get access to its park. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, and now Tom, you're next up with the sports park question.
Thank you, Eric. As someone said, it is complicated, it is complex, and there's a lot of history here. The developers of the Spring Lake area, in exchange for not providing more local parks in the Spring Lake area, agreed to accept the obligation for the part of the capital costs of the community and senior center. So basically, they're not paying for the operational costs of the center. The general fund is paying for that. They're paying for the bonds that were sold in order to build that center. By the way, those bonds will be paid off in 2026. So we can see the horizon where that will no longer be the case. But access is definitely a problem. And our council just approved proceeding with a pedestrian overpass that will come in just about where the Christian school is. So if you imagine Farmers Central going west across 113 and landing right at the Community Senior Center on Sports Park Drive, that's going to be built in the next few years. And we're taking immediate steps to get that going. That'll make a difference. It'll also mean a lot safer routes to schools, particularly for the Pioneer High School students, so they don't have to go over the Gibson overpass. So there's a difference between operational costs and capital costs, but it was a deal made by the developers. People regularly say, make the developers pay for these things. Well, that's exactly what was done. We need to remember that everybody moved into Spring Lake already has a library and a network of existing fire stations, a lot of other things that were paid for by the people already here. So it's not an unusual thing to have to pay for capital facilities. That said, the Spring Lake economics of Spring Lake are typical of what development has to face these days. Not only do you have to buy the house, but you have to pay on your Mello-Roos, which paid for the building of the roads. I mean, somebody had to pay for all those roads to get built. And also, they now have a lighting and landscaping district, which is a substantial annual fee. They pay for, they pay for all the park maintenance inside Spring Lake, plus all the beautifully tree-lined streets there. So, and the walkways and things that have been.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Get carried away.
Oh, I know. It's hard to fit every thought into 120 seconds. And we have the same questions I'll read again because we've had 3 candidates answer. And so it'll be going to Vicky. And the question is this: the sports park located on E Street next to the community and senior center is a wonderful amenity enjoyed by Woodland residents and others. Yet it appears that a significant percentage of the funding for the sports park comes from the residents of Spring Lake, who live on the other side of Highway 113, with no easy access to the property. What do you know about the funding of the sports park, and is it appropriate to pay for a facility that is available to everyone with an oversized contribution from one small group of neighborhoods? Vicky.
Well, I think my colleagues have all kind of answered that question. I do believe that it's unfortunate that they feel that they're being slighted, but I know that when we purchased 21 years ago in our community here in the southeast part of town, we had to pay a Mello-Roos tax, and that was just part of it. There weren't Pioneer High School was barely being built. We never had the pleasure of having all our sons play on that football field, but it was something that we realized that we had to incur. And we enjoy the parks and the streets and the beautiful environment that my family was able to grow up in. And that's part of buying in a new development. And unfortunately, Mello-Roos, I don't know if it's still called that, but I know that was in effect back then, 21 years ago. And it sounds like it continues till this day, where the communities who are under new development have to pay, unfortunately, taxes. But that is part of having the amenities of living in a new subdivision, and knowing that others are benefiting from your investment should be something you should take pride in. That there are citizens in Woodland that are enjoying the community park and enjoying something that you've invested in should be something of pride and not maybe resentment. And sometimes things aren't always fair, but sometimes we have to look at the overall picture and realize that we're doing something that benefits others. And so Woodland has the luxury of having that community complex, and There are private groups who are going to have to raise funds to have their amenities continue to be developed in that sports park area. So it's going to take, again, a community effort to provide for all the residents to enjoy that sports complex. And it would be great to have a private investor who would say, we'll take care of it all. So, but we don't. So we have to work on it.
Nice. Thank you, Vicky. Maybe they're listening right now.
Yes,
So,
yes,
good.
maybe they're out there.
All right. So that brings us to the conclusion of that question coming from our audience. We have another question coming to you, which I did not prepare in advance to copy into the chat, which I will in just a moment, but let me read it to you. Sorry about that. And so the question is this, and let me tell you the order of respondents. And so this question will go to Joe first, then it will go to Tom, then Vicky, and then, oh, you know what? I completely messed up. Myra, you didn't get a chance to answer the question. So I knew I'd make at least one mistake, and I just did it, and you got to be the recipient of my mistake. So before we move on, somebody should stop me. So go ahead, Myra, tell us your response, and then I'll be prepared for the next question.
No worries. I was going to say, man, this is, no, has been a big topic of discussion and of concern. And, this came up when I moved into this community and just being integrated into the community and talking to my neighbors. This comes up. I mean, it's looking, in fact, at our tax bill right now, because I was explaining to somebody who was interested in understanding more about this tax structure for Spring Lake. The reality is, when you're sitting here trying to make ends meet and looking at how much tax you're paying, it is concerning, and it becomes an opportunity to become more critical of things. The sports park is truly a community asset. I strongly believe that. Now, I think a few of my colleagues said it's a complicated matter, and that's the answer I got when I went and asked the city manager. Now, it's in my nature to say, okay, well, it's complicated, but there must be something we can do. So one of the thoughts that I've had is in the areas of maintenance. So that maintenance is covered by the Spring Lakes taxpayers. I'm interested in looking at, is there opportunity to make some revenue so that the maintenance is covered by those revenue generating activities. So Vicky, I'm with you. Maybe there's somebody out there that's this is their sweet spot and they're willing to do something like that. Additionally, maybe we could take a look and see what the maintenance costs are being allocated there to ensure that there's only things that are specific to that sports park maintenance are included. So while it is complicated, I think we owe it to our community to take a look and see if there's a solution to address it. I also want a full disclosure. I love the parks over on the other side of town. I spend a lot of time on Woodside Park because my daughter goes to preschool near there. So that's the park that I choose. And I know I didn't pay a penny for that building. So, I think these parks are an asset for the entire city, the new ones or the old ones. So that's my perspective. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Myra. And thanks for your grace in my mistake of neglecting you to answer. And so